מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בנוטשי ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי, דשנת בשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantor Schiffman began our service chanting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, please join me in reciting Psalm 23 in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yishem Adonai Mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And this is a very sad and difficult day for all of us who knew Arnold and loved him. He was a precious family member and friend, and his death comes suddenly, unexpectedly, and too soon. And we are left to grapple with our emotions as we think back over the gift of his life, and the love and the care that he leaves behind. I'm going to invite a friend of Arnold's, Darwin, to come forward first to speak for a few moments, and then I'll share some reflections as well.
Hi, I'm Darwin Jones. My wife Jill and I are from Vero Beach, Florida, and that's where Arnold has his other home. I met Arnold through Rotary, and we became very close friends, and we accepted he and Gail into our family. So they would come to all our family get-togethers, whether it was Christmas, Easter, whatever the date was. They would join us and have dinner. Sunday evenings we'd have dinner. They'd come over. And so I have a funny story to tell you about one of those times, and it was at Christmas a number of years ago, probably 3 years ago. The person who typically does Santa Claus for us for the grandbabies couldn't make it. So we enlisted Arnold and said, "Arnold, could you do this?" And he said facetiously, "Well, it's always been on my bucket list to be Santa Claus." So we dressed him up, and he was ready to go. But before that, and I need to digress in the chronology here a little bit, Arnold, when he would come over, would drink a very small glass of wine. Well, that night he drank one, and he was starting on his second. And Jill says, "Arnold, what in the world is going on tonight?" He says, "I'm so nervous." He says, "I'm not sure if I could do this." So he was able to get all dressed up and do it. He had been practicing his ho, ho, ho's in a deep voice so that, the kids would believe it. Well, by the time he had the 2 glasses of wine and he rang the front doorbell, ringing his bells coming in, it was, "Hi, hi, hi, ho, ho, ho," in a real high voice. And he sat down and gave the gifts to the children in this real high, squeaky voice. And the kids believed it. They didn't make any difference to them. But that was a special time with Arnold. He was so afraid that he'd make a mistake, but he did a terrific job, and we appreciated it. So, as the rabbi said, that's, we have to celebrate his life. He was a good man. Now, on another topic, in life there's givers and there are takers, and Arnold was an eternal giver. And I know there's so many of you in this congregation here who can say that they got a gift card, or they got flowers, or they got fruit, all different types of gifts. Arnold always gave gifts to everyone, including us. He would come to my office and bring me things, just because that's the man he was. And he's such an extraordinary man in that fashion that it's just hard to believe, because there aren't many people like that anymore. And Jill and I are blessed to have been friends, and really meaningful friends, with Arnold. Thank you.
In the writings of our sages, we read that Rabbi Eliezer taught, "Repent one day before you die." To which he was asked, "And which day is that?" And the answer given is every day. Every day we should stop to think about our actions, what we might have done differently, what we would change, so we should try to be our best. We should always seek to live our life in a way that we have no regrets, because we take care of everything that we need to and everyone that we should. And that's a good description of Arnold. Arnold was taken too soon from us, but there's no question that he was taken from a life that had no regrets, because he loved everyone, treated everyone with great care and compassion, gave 110% of himself to every person, to every cause he was involved in. He lived a life with a great deal of humility. He never thought so much of himself, never put himself on any pedestal, only saw his role in life as serving and helping others, seeking to make a difference. He was a loving brother to Richard and Helen. And I know Richard is not physically with us today because his wife was undergoing a procedure, but he's watching the stream. And so Richard, as you watch this, know that we send our love to you and our prayers to you for healing and for comfort. He was a loving brother-in-law to you, Alan and Carol, and a loving uncle to Shayna and Paul, to Zachary and Crystal, to Scott and Stacy. Arnold was born and raised in Philadelphia. And as he did as an adult, he put all his energies into everything that he did from his youth, whether it was a job cutting the grass or an assignment in school. There were four passions in Arnold's life. The first of those passions was Gail. Gail and Arnold met in college at Rutgers in South Jersey. They were taking an anatomy class together. And as Arnold had told Rabbi Rudin-Luria at the time of her passing, she was 2 seats away, and somehow he managed to maneuver it so that by the next class he was sitting next to her. And soon he was taking her to fraternity parties, and the relationship blossomed. Blossomed is an understatement. That was, I believe, the freshman year of college, and they eloped that year at 18 years old and never had another partner for 52 years that they shared their lives together. An extraordinary story of deep, passionate, caring love between two individuals whose souls were bound together in endless devotion and care, deeply in love. Arnold would do anything for Gail. She was the center of his life, the reason for his being. And when Gail became ill, he was her guardian angel through all of her challenges. As many of you know, Gail contracted meningitis. She was a librarian at a school. We don't think of working in a school as having job-related hazards, but it is. And meningitis is a very serious illness, which takes its toll on the body in many ways. One of them was damaging Gail's heart valve. And when she needed surgery, they knew they wanted to bring her here to the Cleveland Clinic because Gail's uncle had been treated at the Cleveland Clinic as well. They came here to Cleveland, and Toby Crosgrove told them they should move to Cleveland to be near her treatment, and they did. And for many long years, the clinic took care of Gail, and Arnold took care of Gail, lovingly watching over her. The two of them were like two teenagers. He adored her. He was devoted to her. He watched over her. And her passing was extraordinarily difficult for Arnold. Indeed, all of us who know him know that he never really got over her passing. He knew somehow up here that he needed to move on. He would ask those of us in relationship with him, clergy and friends, to help him to move on. But here in the heart, he couldn't let go. He was so in love and so needed her. At the clinic, Alan made wonderful friends. Doctors, caregivers, and administrators who helped support he and Gail through their challenges, upon whom Arnold showered his typical kindness and generosity and care, so that those at the clinic became more than just caretakers, but also friends and family. Alan Lichten, Arnold's hematologist from our congregation, was his doctor, but also his friend. And week after week, they would sit together in Shabbat morning services, always talk together at Kiddush. I know that Alan watched over him and Gail like a hawk, monitoring their care. He had a very close and special relationship with his primary care physician, Dr. Andrea Seiken, and with Amy Green, the director of spiritual care, and with you, Tiffany, who are with us today, the director of philanthropy at the clinic. Arnold had been at 3M for 32 years. He was hardworking, very devoted to his career, and extremely good at it. In the early days, he and Gail were both teachers, but Arnold gave up his teaching to go into working in pharmaceuticals, and he found his calling there. He was really good. In fact, he was one of the top producers for 3M, and he won many awards, trophies, special gifts because of his success there. And what was the secret to Arnold's success? It was that when he walked into a doctor's office to talk to the doctor about his products, he always brought treats with him. Fruit, candy, wine, for those at the front desk, for the nurses, and of course for the doctors too. He brought it because he knew that it would open doors, and it did. Anyone who knows Arnold knows that he brought it because that's just who he is. Because the way he connects to people is by giving. Because outside of 3M, he did the same thing with everyone that he met. And even after retirement, he was still always giving, sending packages of fresh Florida fruit, or bringing candy. Always looking to give, to help. I want to share two beautiful reminiscences by colleagues from 3M. The first is by Richard, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Ricciardi, who wrote that Arnold was the consummate salesperson. His distinguished 3M career proved that point. He had more top producer trips to Hawaii than anyone, and he was very proud of his display case of 3M Waterford Crystal trophies. He writes, Arnie and I shared many days together on the road with terrific memories, whether it was our managers' meetings at various resorts, AMCP conference meetings, or the managed care seminars at Wonoak, 3M's corporate retreat. One of the fun highlights was the time we stayed at the Green Valley Ranch in Las Vegas for a meeting. On our free evening, Arnie was able to procure tickets to see Danny Gaines on the Strip, which was an incredible show. When we left the show, which was in the MGM Grand, we saw bright area lights and crowds all over the place. We found out that it was the opening night of the Wynn Casino. The only problem, the doors were opening at midnight, and we had an early meeting starting the next day. Nonetheless, we knew we would never again have the opportunity to be at this opening, and we made the decision to do it. Also, because it was opening night, Wynn was offering complimentary Maybach car service to our hotel, which heightened the experience. We did not get back to the Green Valley Ranch until the early hours of the morning. It was too late to go to sleep, so we just showered, sucked it up, and attended the meetings. And this additional reminiscence by his colleague Ursel Tate. Arnie was one of those people that would rather give than receive and cared more about not hurting other people's feelings than he did his own. However, I really got to know the real Arnold after Gail died. After Gail's death, the loneliness and separation drew us closer together, and he began to share intimate details about his life and family. He used to call me every night, and we'd talk about the news, weather, sports, life in general, or to ask advice. I always told him that I couldn't give him the advice he wanted because he was in a place I had never been and I had no experience with. He always told me that he hoped that I was never in his place, but if I ever was, that I could always depend on him being there to help me through what he was going through. Sometimes he would call just to say goodnight and that he was lonely and just wanted to hear a friendly voice. But the main thing I remember about our conversations, and always will, is that he would never hang up the telephone after our nightly telephone calls without thanking me for talking with him, apologizing for taking up my time, and telling me how much it meant to him. Also, he would say, "I love you, brother." And many of us have heard him say that phrase as well. And asked me to tell my wife that he loved her. Gail was one of Arnie's passions. Family was a second passion. His 3M work was a third passion, and then there was his passion for sports. Football, baseball, basketball, especially hockey. He always rooted for the home team wherever he lived. He was a fan of our teams here in Cleveland, but his constant source of pride and his true fanhood went to all the Philadelphia teams, especially the Flyers. And boy, was he happy about the Super Bowl this year. He was so devoted a fan that he would record the games, not like most people do, to record the game because they can't see it and watch it later. He'd record it while he was watching it so he could play it back and watch it again and again. He had an extraordinary collection of sports memorabilia, which started when Zach, his nephew here, was in high school and working at a sports memorabilia store in Philly. So this combined two things Arnold cared deeply about, his nephew and sports. And he went on to continue buying sports memorabilia in his store in Fort Lauderdale. In his condo in Vero Beach, he had a whole room devoted to sports memorabilia. Over 200 autographed baseballs and dozens of autographed footballs and basketballs, including one of his prized treasures, a basketball autographed by Wilt Chamberlain. Relationships mattered the most to Arnold. Darwin, you shared a story that reflects this. You drove Arnold and Lita to the airport to come home after his fall. Before you brought him to the airport, he returned his rental car to the budget rental car dealership in Vero Beach. And you suggested to him it might be easier when they came back to Florida if they would just rent the car at the airport, then they could return it to the airport as they were getting on their plane. But Arnold said, "But I have a relationship with the budget rental guy in Vero Beach." The relationship was more important than what was convenient. And that was reflected in his relationship with all of his friends from Vero Beach, his friends from 3M, his friends at the clinic, and his friends at the synagogue. Arnie and Gail were regulars at synagogue. When they came to Cleveland, they were first very deeply involved in Temple Tifereth Israel. And they developed a very deep, lasting relationship with Rabbi Rosie Chaim that they still have to this day, who they consider to be not just one of their rabbis, but one of their friends. And then, in seeking out a more traditional setting, they found their way to B'nai Yeshurun, and similarly developed a very close, deep, personal relationship with myself and Rabbi Rudin Luria and Cantor Schiffman. More than a clergy relationship, really a deep friendship. Arnold and Gail were always at Shabbat services when they were in town and quickly endeared themselves to so many members of our congregation who came to watch for them and to love them. He was a very deeply ardent Zionist supporter of Israel, who always loved to talk about what was happening in Israel, the challenges Israel faced, pride in Israel's accomplishments. He was a supporter of AIPAC. And I remember his great joy at the announcement of the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. It brought him much satisfaction. He had deep love for family, for Richard, and for Helen, and for Alan and Carol, and his nephews and nieces. And Zach, you reflected a little bit on that relationship with me today. You shared how when you were small, they used to bring you all kinds of sportswear, team sportswear, from the Philadelphia sports teams. They started you off when you were very young with Eagles onesies. You've outgrown those, I assume, since then. But he continued to bring you sports gear over the years. And when you would visit your aunt and uncle in Florida, they would take you to a Marlins game every day of the week. They bought you a Marlins jersey. They took you on the field to meet the players. You shared that you always had fun being together, whether walking around the mall or going to the beach and enjoying the beautiful Florida weather. And you shared how they sent cards to all the members of the family for every holiday, no matter how small the holiday, even for St. Patty's Day, which just passed. And that over the last 10 years, Arnold also gave you advice about business and career and the importance of fostering relationships. Relationships, that's what it was all about for Arnold. In his genuine kindness and warmth and caring, his soft-spoken, calm demeanor, he exhibited great loyalty to those people who he had relationships with, great generosity of heart and spirit and of resources to help others. He is a great model for us of what it means to care about those around us, to fulfill the verse from the Torah, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Our tradition teaches that nothing in life is really coincidence. And Arnold passed away hours before Gail's birthday. And he's reunited with her now. Surely they are dancing together in heaven. And he is reveling in being again in her presence. He also passed away during this week after we just began reading the book of Vayikra in synagogue, the third book of the Torah, which describes the rituals of the tabernacle in the wilderness and the temple in Jerusalem, and whose focus is primarily and especially in this past week's portion on the sacrifices that were offered in the temple. The Hebrew word for sacrifice is korban. And korban comes from the word karov. It means to draw close. Through our sacrifices, we drew close to God by demonstrating our devotion to God, by giving up that which was of great value to us, to show that God was more important to us than the material possessions that we had, that we knew that there was something higher in life to live for. How appropriate for Arnold to have passed during this time when we read about the korbanot. Because Arnold was always willing to sacrifice from whatever he had in order to draw close to us and to so many others. I know that all of us will remember the many gifts that Arnold left for us, most especially his love and his example, footsteps in which for all of us to follow, so that we can keep his memory alive for a blessing. Amen. We'll rise now for the memorial prayer.
אלוה שליחות, חנון ורחום, ערך אפיים ורב חסד, אמצי כפרה, פשע וקרבת ישע, ומנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת אברהם מדור שלח לעולמו, ענה בעל הרחמים, זכרה לו לטובה, כל זכויותיו וצדקותיו, בארצות החיים. ופתח לו שערי צדק ויורה, שערי חמלה וחנינה. בשאת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור וצרור וחיים ונשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום עמי ישכבו, ונאמר אמן.
God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind, we pray that you grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Arnold who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that you remember all the worthy and righteous deeds he performed in the land of the living. May he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May the Lord be his portion. May he rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. Interment will follow at Beit Olam Cemetery. Those that would like can make contributions to B'nai Yeshurun Congregation or to the Cleveland Clinic Foundation.